football agent to the likes of Benni McCarthy, Stephen Pienaar, and Njabulo Blom, and the new Bafana defender, Bradley Cruz. Rob, thank you so much for joining us. Been a while. Are you well?
Yeah, good, Andile. Can you hear me clear?
I can hear you nice and clear, beautifully crisp, in fact.
Good man, good man. I think the internet connections to London are a bit better than Ireland at this point in time.
Are you experiencing the same type of weather, though? I mean, it's only a stone's throw away, isn't it?
Listen, London, you don't expect too much at this time of the year. The bar's quite low, don't worry.
Rob, let's get into it. I mean, let's begin perhaps with the Njabulo Blom matter here. We heard Hugo Broos quite angry, in fact, and I'm going to play that clip before we get into it. This was Hugo Broos speaking on the attitude of Njabulo Blom being called up to the national team. If you missed it, this was in conversation with the SABC. I think it was Vusiwe Ngobo. In fact, it was Vusiwe Ngobo who did the interview just before he announced the squad. Have a listen.
When I select a player, first of all, it's important that you have the quality. But secondly, and as important, is that you have the right mindset, the right mentality. So if Njabulo Blom sends us a message on Monday that he will not come to the camp because he's injured on his shoulder, I think it's very normal that we ask a medical report. So we asked it. 2 days later, without sending a medical report, Njabulo Blom did us a message saying that he's ready to play. I'm very sorry.
Is the shoulder injury gone?
I don't know. I'm very sorry.
And it's not the first time.
I'm sorry?
It's not the first time.
It's not the first time. So this is not the right attitude, I find. Players have to know. It's up to you to think what attitude is that. And therefore I didn't select him.
Well, there was a conversation being had by Vusiwe Ngobo, Hugo Broos, as well as I think it's William Nyandu, in fact, that is the voice that you hear there as well. Rob, this is something that you'd be aware of course.
Yeah, I think, Andile, either Hugo Broos is not getting the right information, and therefore he's drawing the incorrect conclusions, because the information isn't reaching him properly, or there's another reason why he has this outlook toward Njabulo Blom. Regarding that particular situation of the injury, Njabulo Blom played on the Sunday's final league game, and after the and during the game, it's not difficult to go look. During the game, he was treated for a shoulder injury, and came back onto the field. That's there for everybody to see if they watch the game, which I'm sure if Hugo Broos did watch the game, he would have seen that. The coach, then the player, after the game was in a lot of pain. He informed Vincent Secker, the team manager, of this fact. Yeah, of this fact. Vincent on the Monday quite correctly said, get us a report on that. Blom then travelled back to St. Louis after the game, and he on the Tuesday he went in for a medical test with his club. He explained everything to his club. The club did extensive testing, and the medical opinion of the club at the time was, Njabulo, don't worry. When your camp is only coming up on so-and-so date, you should be fine. This injury will be fine. So don't worry about it. It's not necessarily for you to say you're unavailable. Based on that advice from his club, he then went back to Vincent Secker to say that he actually will be okay and will be available. So then Vincent Secker tried to phone Blom, or they were on the phone on a call, and the call dropped for some reason. Blom tried to phone Vincent back, and he couldn't get hold of him. Vincent then phoned him back, and Blom was out of reach or something, because they were phoning on WhatsApp. And then Blom tried repeatedly thereafter to get hold of Vincent Secker, and to explain why he had sent the latest message that he is available, and to explain the circumstances why. and he couldn't get hold of him. So basically, I would imagine that Hugo Broos potentially was given information by the team manager that was incomplete. And I know Blom subsequently tried a number of times, well, through his management, through himself, through trying to speak with Vincent, trying to speak with Hellman, to get a meeting set up with a coach to explain it. And there was just no interest in meeting. So it's very difficult to basically defend yourself against a public accusation that the coach has made, according to that interview clip. It's very difficult to do that when no one wants to communicate, because it's a clear situation that it's a misunderstanding, and that Blom actually followed the instructions that he was given. So, you know, I also find it strange that maybe the coach didn't bother to pick up the phone and phone the player. Why wouldn't, I mean, I'm sure there are other players in his squad that when they are injured or when something happens, that he picks up the phone and says, well, how are you? And blah, blah, blah. So, you know, for me, I think, as I say, it's one of two things. Either the coach has not been fed the correct information from the people around him. And if that is the case, then I don't know why that is, because it doesn't make sense. Or the coach interested to know what the real story is. Because, you know, and you'd say, well, why would I say that? Well, you know, because of the other part of the interview that was played on that clip, he said this isn't the first time with Blom. Well, let's revisit the previous two times. The first time, I think it was in the March window, if I'm not mistaken, FIFA window, Blom was sick with COVID. We informed that, and Coach Broos came out in the media, basically alluded to the fact that he really believed that Blom was sick. Yet, the first game after he was told that he was sick, Blom wasn't even in the team, on the bench, nowhere in the first St. Louis game after the SAFA were told that he was ill with COVID. So if he wasn't ill with COVID, why then was he completely out of the squad? It was a simple reason why, because he was in bed sick. I'm not quite sure why Coach Broos would choose not to believe that. So that's point number one. Point number two is the second issue. So he was called up, if you recall, Andile, into the September FIFA date.
Yep.
He was named in the preliminary squad for that particular game in September. He was named in the preliminary squad. 1 week later, the final team of 23 was announced. When naming that final 23, Coach Broos was asked, why is Blom not there?
He was asked by me. It was a conversation with myself. I remember that.
And Andile was the answer not that, did he not say, well, he hardly has been playing the last month. He's been in and out the team, and the team hasn't played games, and lack of matches. Is that not the reason? Is that not the answer he gave?
I mean, I'd have to go find it, but I think it was within those lines, was something like that. Yes.
The gist of the answer was that. Okay, and so my question, very simply, is this: then why did you name him in the preliminary squad? Because from the day that the preliminary squad was announced to the day when the final squad was announced, I think Blom played two games in that 1 week. And when you look at his total, you must remember that the PSL clubs went back to preseason training around about the first week of July, if I'm not mistaken, end of June, somewhere around there. Blom in that period between the beginning of July and the end of August played something like 8 matches, which is comparable to what the PSL players had played in that period. But the biggest question is this: why not name a guy in a preliminary squad when already in your head you have it that your is, well, he hasn't played enough games. So why name him? Because 1 week later, when you name the final squad, Blom's played two more games in that time. So clearly, the coach, maybe Blom is not his favorite player.
I mean,
let's
break it down a little bit. Let's break it down a little bit, and you can correct me here. The correct procedure is it's not the coach that reaches out. It's obviously going to be the team manager that reaches out to the international players in particular to say, hey, via text, you've been selected, or how are you feeling, and et cetera, et cetera. So Vincent would have had to do that with Blom. Blom would have then have to reply. Wouldn't it have been procedure? I'm talking about this particular time. Wouldn't it have been procedure and easier, Rob, if Blom had just said, hey, I'm injured, and this is what the team is saying? Because what if I put it to you that through Safa, there was comment after Blom saying, I'm hurt, my shoulder's not well, to speak to a team member out at St. Louis to say, hey, this is what we're hearing from the player. Can you please give us a medical report? And then they respond and say, oh, we were not aware of such. Would that then not be a possibility, you think?
Well, what happened? Well, if I'm understanding you correctly,
is that Safa reached out to the team, and the team said they weren't aware of his injury?
Well, sure, if Safa reached out to the team, I don't know. Okay, all I know is that Blom informed Safa that he'd got injured in the game and he was in pain, and it was not feeling good. Vincent then came back to Blom and said, you need to get a medical certificate. Blom then went the next day in for a test with the club's medical people. The medical people said the nature of this injury is such that you will be okay. Don't worry, you will be okay. And based on that, Blom then went back to the team manager to say, I will be okay.
But it would have been so much easier, Rob, if the team said, hey, yes, he was injured. We did test him out, and we feel like he's good to come nonetheless. Wouldn't that just have sorted out this entire thing?
Well, it would have if you don't believe your player. But if you believe your player, then you believe your player. And all of this, we're not talking that this all happened in a period of 1 week.
I don't know if it's believe the player or procedural.
Monday to a Wednesday.
I mean, procedure says if you aren't able to make it due to injury, and Rob, nobody knows this more than you. You've been doing this longer, had more players possibly in that team than anybody I know, particularly international players. Procedure is you provide a certificate.
But the club said you don't need a certificate because we know, after they had examined him, Blom said, I need a certificate. And the club said you don't need a certificate because you will be okay. This is the nature of this injury, is that you will be okay. So you can inform your federation. So at the end of the day, what stopped Safa from contacting the club and says, well, the player says, we've heard this, that's happened. He said
I did a little bit of digging. I did a little bit of digging, and I can tell you now that Safa's going to come back to you and say, yes, we did. And we spoke to the team, and the team, through its representative, said they weren't aware of the shoulder injury.
But
which then sets, Njabulo versus the team, because then they sit there and they say, how? What is Njabulo talking about then? This means you are maybe not keen on coming. A couple of days later, once the team has replaced him, Njabulo says, I am available. But by then, it's a little too late. The team has already replaced him.
But then why don't we just go back to the match in question? And why don't you just review the video of the match and see if he actually injured his shot? It's not that difficult to do that, right? It's on Apple TV, and I think you can probably go back into the archive and see whatever game you want to see. So it's not that difficult to see whether at any stage in that game he injured his shoulder and had to come off for some treatment.
But also, I think, Rob, it's a lot of misunderstanding with the same player over 3 different times does then to a Hugo Broos who doesn't do the...
No. But Andile, I want to correct you. It's not a misunderstanding over 3 times.
What would you call
it? The first time, the player was sick and the club confirmed that he had COVID.
Okay.
They confirmed that. So Safa chose not to believe the player and clearly not to believe his club, because if they did believe, they would have said, well, he's not selected for the team because he's got COVID. But they never said that. They left enough hanging in the air for the fans to start doubting the player, which is incorrect. Because in my book, you're hanging your player out to dry when you do something like that. Second point. The second point is, it's got nothing to do with anything to do with Blom. The second one was a coach's decision that I don't want to put this player in the final roster. So my question is, and I don't want to put him in the final roster for A, B, and C reasons. Well, A, B, and C reasons existed prior to you naming the preliminary roster. So why did you name him in the preliminary roster?
But Rob,
what that tells me is that the coach possibly has a problem with this player, or just doesn't like him,
But what do you think that would be? Why would Hugo Broos, who is new to South Africa and South African environment, South African players, not like a very likable character, mind you, is Njabulo Blom? Why would he not like Njabulo Blom in particular?
I have no idea. I have no idea. It doesn't make sense. And certainly Njabulo Blom is not a liar. So it makes no sense. At the end of the day, sometimes coaches don't like it when media keep asking them, well, why isn't this player in the team, and why isn't that player, and why isn't enough Kaizer Chiefs players in the team? Coaches, that can get coaches backs up, and it could in a way that's unconscious way could build up a bit of resentment from a coach towards a situation, like these constant questions of, well, why aren't there more Kaizer Chiefs players in the squad? Why isn't Blom there? Why isn't this one here? Maybe he's tired of being asked why Blom isn't there, because maybe in his opinion, Blom's a marginal player to him. No problem, because every coach must select who they're comfortable with selecting. And if Blom's not his player, not his cup of tea, then rather just say that. Rather say, Blom has got a lot more to do to
I'll talk to you, Rob, about this particular incident, the last one. I implore you to go and look into it, because like I said, I did a little bit, and I didn't need to do much. I didn't need to. When I found out that we're going to be having a conversation with you, I went and dug here and there, and there was a conversation that was had with the team, and there was a comment saying, hey, the particular person spoken to said they weren't aware of that shoulder injury. So perhaps if you look into that, I think that will be a huge source.
The person at St. Louis.
The person at St. Louis. I think if you look at that'll be a huge source of your headache at the moment, because I can imagine you and the player as well a little frustrated right now, particularly with January looming and the Africa Cup of Nations looming. I can imagine it's something that Njabulo would have loved to be a part of.
I think the simple thing is, I spoke to Njabulo last night, and he said he had to go off the field for treatment with his shoulder during the game, and he came back on. And
this is something that you've seen, right?
This is what he told me last night.
But have you seen it, Rob? Did you go look at it? Did you see it? And did that look like a, you know what I mean? Did you see the injury? And
he told me that last night.
Okay.
So I will go look. But the bottom line is,
but and anybody that's listening to this right now is saying, wow, Andile defending Safa, we never thought. But I'm not. I'm just saying I did a little bit of digging, and I would understand from a Hugo Broos and a team manager point of view, if they called the team and the team said, we are unaware of that injury, I would understand how we then get to be here. And I think perhaps that is a little bit of digging that you and Njabulo might need to do, because then there might have been a miscommunication on Njabulo's team point of view. There might have been somebody that is communicating with Safa that wasn't aware of the fact that Njabulo had bruised or hurt his shoulder in a way that would allow him to go on.
But then it comes back to the other point, Andile. Then why does nobody talk to the player? When the player tries to get hold of Vincent Secker, why does Vincent Secker not return phone calls?
I mean, I can't answer that. But what if it was? What if it was after the time that the player was needed for?
No, the player was trying to get hold of him immediately from that Wednesday, returning calls. The question is also when he's trying to reach out to Hugo Broos to have a meeting with Hugo Broos, stonewall, silence, no response. So at the end of the day, it's, you know, whereas I'm sure the coach talks to other players. So, you know, at the end of the day, you know, as I say, maybe he's not his cup of tea as a player. No problem.
I don't know. I mean, I've sat with the man, Rob, and I know if you had been in South Africa as you were, you know, you'd be one of those people that would have reached out to the coach a long time ago, and you'd have an established relationship with him. But my feeling of the coach, having sat with him several times,
Andile, I tried. Doesn't answer me.
Is this through the telephone?
No.
Yeah.
Yes, through the telephone. I've left him a message.
Yeah.
And he never called back.
And was this in particular to deal with the Njabulo Blom matter?
I'll tell you exactly when I reached out to him. I can actually give you the date. Just 1 second. The date was on 12th of November.
Oh, so obviously it was
it's
then.
Today the 20th. So now is the 29th of November. 17 days ago. I've heard nothing.
Yeah, I get to sit with the coach every now and then, Rob, and these are things that come up. And
you're more fortunate than me, and
he's known, and I can vouch for him on this. He's a very straight talker, doesn't mince his words, speaks his truth, and I'm pretty sure he will do the same as far as this matter is concerned. You know, as far as
Andile, Andile, I've got nothing wrong against the coach at all. Nothing at the end of the day, because I've never ever met him personally. And I've never spoken to him. So therefore, I can't draw my conclusions whether he's a lovely guy, whether he's not a nice guy, whether he's this kind of guy, that guy. I can't. All I'm saying in this particular, and we've got other players that are represented, that are in the national team, that there are no problems. So all I'm talking about in this isolated incident is the situation around the player Njabulo Blom. And what I've explained today is where the realities of where the player feels where he's at this point in time.
Yeah, I just feel if Hugo Broos didn't like Njabulo, he wouldn't call him up at all. He wouldn't give him the game time. But let's see what happens moving forward, Rob. And I really do. I'm very fond of Njabulo. I think he's a lovely young man. He's always been respectful whenever we've encountered him. And we really do wish him the very best in this regard. And, you know, I do know that most of his communication happens with the team manager, Vincent, whom other players have not, you know, had the same encounters with. So I really do wonder with the communication there. And I think moving forward, Rob, perhaps that's the thing that must be dealt with, to say, how do we best help each other communicate this? You know, be it, you know, there must be a second or third person that is involved in this, which is not norm, but there seems to be an issue whenever it is in Njabulo Blom. I want to take a quick break, wrap this up, and of course touch a little bit of your other client, Benni McCarthy, as well, if you don't mind, Rob.
Okay, sure, Andile.
Hey, wouldn't your home just love a fresh new coat of paint? Give it the Dulux promise. Trusted Dulux is a world-class paint that stays beautiful for years. You'll experience its covering power. You'll see its exceptional finish. You'll enjoy its lasting durability. That's the Dulux promise. Durability, coverage, and finish. Get to a store and buy Dulux to win your share of 700,000 Rand today. T's and C's apply. With Dulux, you'll love your home. Rob Moore joins us now. We're having a conversation, of course, that started with Njabulo Blom, but I'd like to move it on a little bit here. Bradley Cruz, a young talent that South Africa is enjoying at the moment. He's out at Golden Arrows. I've had the pleasure of seeing him and meeting him there. Another lovely young man. But I thought I'd see him turn out in Naturena. What happened?
Well, Andile, you know, Brad's managed by my son's company, and obviously I'm very close to the situation from what I hear. But, you know, yeah, he came back. His contract at Newcastle ended in the June, and he picked up an injury just before the end of his contract and came back to South Africa to rehab. And the rehab took a little bit longer than we thought. But anyway, towards the time when he was starting to get back to fitness, and we were very grateful in that time that SuperSport allowed him to rehab at the club. Gavin Hunt was fantastic, and the club itself was super, that they allowed him to rehab there. We know that Kaizer Chiefs was looking for a left back. We spoke with them about allowing Brad to come and train there for 2 or 3 days for them to have a look. He went there, and they said, no, thank you. Not for us, not good enough. Andile, at the end of the day, my humble opinion, if a player is good enough to play 2 years with Schalke under 19s, Schalke is one of the best academies in German football, and 2 years at Newcastle in their reserve team, training sometimes with the first team as well. And he's represented South Africa at youth national team level. I've got to believe that he's not a bad player. Obviously, they had an opinion. They didn't think he was good enough. Fair enough. He ended up going, Fadlu was great. He ended up signing at Maritzburg. He ended up having a great 5 months from a personal perspective. Obviously, the team went down, which was very sad, but I think Brad enhanced his stock significantly. And then at the end of when they went down, he had a clause in his contract that if they did go down, that he would be a free agent. And he was free. And Mato came, and Mato wanted to sign him, and he ended up going there. It again was surprising, after having another 6 months to have a look, that some of these other clubs didn't act on it.
Oh, and, Rob, I don't want to cut you there. I don't want to cut you there, but we've got a minute left before this Zoom times us out. Very quickly, what are the chances of Benni McCarthy coming back to South Africa? He's been linked with several teams, yeah.
I don't, to be honest, club football, I don't think. National team would be a different story, I think, potentially. He never not wanted to take the national team job when it was offered to him. He didn't take it because they wouldn't allow him to bring the backroom staff that he wanted to bring. But, I think that's probably at this stage the only job that may entice him to come back. And I think he would, he would be an interesting candidate. I think he would have a good connection with fans. He would get people excited again about Bafana.
And this has got nothing to do with your frustration with Hugo at the moment.
No, not at all. When I'm talking about whenever the time may be.
Okay.
He's a good candidate because he's positive and he gets the fans on side, yeah. And Bafana needs positivity.
The Chiefs ever come up? Oh. So we do this visually because the show is visual. When you go watch the show later on YouTube, you'll see everybody's visual. So we don't do telephone calls. We try and do all sorts of visual aids, be it Zoom or Microsoft, whichever one that we use. And obviously, when you, like Timmy and I, it gives you a certain amount of time. And that time had run out with us just as we were having that conversation. And Errol Sweeney at the beginning of the show took a lot of our time trying to get him online, and we weren't able to either. So unfortunately, we didn't have enough time today. But let's go to some of your voice notes at least. So we'll play your voice notes, and then we'd be able to then after that. Should we just take calls straight? Let's take a call straight. Actually, let's just go straight to calls. We're going to take them raw either, so we don't even know who's on the line. Just take whichever call. Let's go for it. The number to call us on is 086 000 2160. Eta? Hey, no, I get a little bit mango tiaka, man. Who's this?
Vixen from Gomshana.
Hey, Vixen from Gomshana, talk to me.
Yeah, I hear the agent is defending his player there. But his outro, like when he got out, he sums everything up. It shows there's something between him and Hugo Broos going well. As much as he can dedicate Benni McCarthy as a candidate for the next Bafana Bafana coach is saying vibrant, it can bring back happiness. That means Hugo Broos is not bringing happiness to the squad, to our national team.
So when are you happy?
Me, I'm happy with Hugo Broos.
All right.
This guy is trying to sabotage Hugo Broos so that Benni McCarthy can come in. He's
Dixon.
trying to turn Hugo Broos, to turn us against Hugo Broos so that Benni McCarthy can come in.
Dixon, I hear you. Thank you so much. I'm only going to have the conversation, mate. It's up to you guys as to, what you make of it. Give people the platform to say what they need. Let's go to the next one. Hi.
Andile.
Hey, Lepara. Umunad. No. Ke sharp, ke strong, man. One already. Good line, how cool, Joe. What do you want to say?
Andile, we need a South African culture. Benni McCarthy, Bafana Bafana.
Jimmy Linehouse is not the one, Jimmy. Jimmy is not the one. And we haven't had Jimmy in a while, man. Would have been nice to hear Jimmy, but his line is not the one. So let's put Jimmy down. Let's go to one more. Hi.
Hello.
Hey, how's it?
I'm okay, Andile.
I'm on the right, man.
Ukhuluma noJabulani kwa Ncube ngilapha eKapa. Hey, unophawula kule ndaba kaBenni le. Angimbona uBenni ebuya la eSouth Africa sifakeke kakhulu man. Imagine uBenni sesimfaka kulama group wethu kuma apartments wethu lapha singokola ngombani ngamanzi. Then makaze soft life eManchester man. Danko ngilapha eKapa.
What a Benni akasigudli atoshapa ke load shedding.
Dile kale ke choba re machia nna ke re machia ntse ba re wena o shako eng a o machia wena o gona khonshina motho gore a qala a ipate ka ndaba ya prayer blow mara ya utlwala re motho o bua maka o a ke re ikentse ena personal twin motho o tlo buelang and blow mara ya utlwala taba tsa ya a re a hlapa
Hey man.
ke a leboa ntate for di question tso mkang tsona.
All right.
Ola Andile ra o leboa tebo from Naledi.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We'll do it again tomorrow. And perhaps, Timmy, if we can, we've got so much voice notes and stuff from today. And I'm terribly sorry we couldn't take your calls because, we struggled with technology at the beginning of the show. For myself, I'll see you later on Sport at 10. Pela. That's all me.